If you're going to play with fire, you're going to get burnt. And if you keep picking it up again and again, I don't know what you expect to happen.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for making us your first stop of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. I want to start off by shouting out all of our Locked On Predators podcast community and your everydayers who tune in to chat all things Preds every day. My name is Jack Williams, and I am the Nashville Predators beat writer for the Hockey News. And to kind of explain the really cryptic, not too cryptic, but very blunt intro there, it's just more of the same things we've been seeing over and over again. Essentially similar problems to the point where the Predators said they don't really want to address them, leading up to the result that we saw on Thursday night. That is a 4-2 loss to the Washington Capitals and another failed comeback similar to the Wild game in the final game before the Winter Olympic break. 2 weeks off, and the Predators are going into this break with a loss. It's just, I don't know what to make of the comeback thing anymore, other than sounding just insane and saying the same things over and over and over again with it. And I'll just be blunt, straightforward, and not get too animated with it at all, because I've just exhausted myself talking about this to the point where we heard Roman Josi after the Minnesota game say we should stop talking about it essentially and just do it, which it's a good mentality, but you're clearly just, the problem has not been addressed as this continues to happen. It's continued throughout the entire season. Andrew Brunette kind of uses "I'm tired" cue, this word he uses when he's getting tired of stuff, and he just says we've talked about it ad nauseum, because it's been a consistent problem throughout the entire year. And these last few games, you've dug yourself into a hole. You pull a miracle out against the St. Louis Blues, what seems to be the peak of all this, essentially them coming back and winning. You almost do it against the Wild. You lose in overtime, and then you get into another position against the Capitals and you lose by 2 goals. It's not feasible. I should get that tattooed on my forehead. I should get a t-shirt of it, essentially, because I've said it too much. It's just not feasible, and it clearly needs to be addressed, and it needs to be seen by management, I guess, that in the trade deadline, see how you can fix this, essentially. Because you've shown when you come out of the game and get a lead, you have a lot of success, and you can compete with the best teams in the NHL, and not only compete, but win. We saw that against Colorado. We saw that against Edmonton. 2 games where the Predators played their best hockey of the year, where they got out to an early lead, kept pace with their opponent, didn't heel off in any way, stayed competitive the entire time, and got rewarded for it. Colorado slipped up a little. That allowed the Predators to take off and win give the Avalanche, their first regulation loss at home in the year. Against Edmonton, you pull it out in overtime on a thrilling goal. It's another massive win. Now, getting like less than 5 minutes into the game, and they're giving up goals here. And yes, there's the silver lining of resiliency and being able to battle back and the belief and all that. But at the end of the day, you're losing a point, and in this case tonight, you're losing 2 points. The Predators, in going into the game now, Predators gave up the first goal of the game for the 39th time this season, and they were looking to come back for the 18th time this year. I have a whole animated part of this as well that I scripted out, so I know to go through it and talk with you guys with it, so I will save all of that for then, because we'll build up to it, essentially. But it's been clear since that St. Louis game, the magic, whatever you want to call it, has been slowly dying. You come back from 4 down, and you score 5 straight goals to pull off a miraculous comeback against the Blues. Then you were down by 2 goals twice against the Wild. You come back, force overtime in that as well. You lose in OT, okay, against a good team in the Central Division, looks good. You go up against a team in Washington right before the Olympic break that's a few spots outside the wild card positioning in the East, but the East is substantially better than the West right now, where at least they're collecting more points out in the East, and you lose by 2 goals. And a lot of it can revert back to the problems we saw at the first part of the year. It seems like this team continues to walk backwards, where you're seeing the penalties come through again, and you're starting to live and die in the penalty kill again. And this was the team that they were celebrating the penalty kill over and over again. And that was where the this is not feasible first came into my vocabulary and onto this podcast. And you think too at the same time as well, okay, they made these comebacks. It looks good at the same time, but why has it been dwindling off? Well, it's clear that the Predators have started to play better teams now, and that's why this isn't working. The Blues have 49 points. I watched a clip from the Lockdown Blues podcast, and I agree. If you want to see a situation where a team needs to completely rebuild, look at the Blues. This team is not, and I know a lot of you, because I read the comments, I know a handful of you don't like this opinion, and that's fine. But in conversation and talking, it's important to listen to both sides. So I'm listening to y'all about this rebuild, and it makes sense. And there's the huge thing that I've heard all year about this team has never been through a rebuild before, and that's true. I think this team still has some gas left in the tank to continue working on something. They have a semblance of something right now that they can build on. The Blues are substantially out right now, and they need a rebuild bad. I don't think this team needs it. Exclamation points bolded bad yet. I think you're getting there. I'm talking about full rebuild, by the way, full rebuild and just tanking essentially. That's team Predators aren't there. The Blues are a team that's there with 49 points. They're way out of it right now. And they're a bad team. And that's why the Predators were able to do that against them. The Wild have 78 points. You show you're a good team because you're able to come back in that game and be competitive and stick with them. But if you're in a different position, if you're like in a Blues position, that could have been like a 7-0 game. Wild had a hat trick. Matt Boley had a hat trick in the first period. And now the Capitals have 65 points, which again, that would be good. That'd be solid in the Western Conference if the Capitals were in it. But they're not. They're in the East, and there's so many points in the Eastern Conference right now. And they're at home for their final game. When you're doing the same things over and over and over again, and expecting the same results, expecting a different result, or expecting the same thing from the Blues game to just continue, it's not going to happen. This Capitals team is not going to let that happen. No, it's just not. But enough about the ranting, which we just did 8 minutes of. How did they get there? Wilson had a snapshot with Haig and another Capitals player creating a screen, and it's 1-0 early on. The second goal was just awful defense by Cole Smith and Nick Perbix that allowed Strome to just come in, move the puck down to Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he gets a quick shot off and it goes in. It's more of just the puck just kind of like just slid through. Both of them just slid through untouched. It was bad defense. And yes, they did it shorthanded. That's a good detail to add. But at the same time, like, it makes sense if they're entering the zone wide and going into the zone wide and moving the puck within there, but they're going straight down the middle. They're going right down Main Street, essentially. And the defense just did not have any defense at all to counter that specifically on that specific goal. And it was a power play goal, and I'll give them that, but it just didn't look good. And then the final goal in this 3-0 run that the Capitals had to open up the game. Chychrun, it was just a weak let in by Justus Annunen. Looking at it, it was a long shot, and it was a weak goal let in by Annunen. Essentially, that one is on the goaltender a little bit more. But then the Predators get on the board off of a shot that went off of Marchessault's skate, and then it's 3-1. And the second goal gets into traffic, and Michael McCarron's there to bang away at the puck on the rebound. I believe he got the third rebound to go in, and it's 3-2, and suddenly the Predators have that comeback mojo going again. But then you have the penalties that come into here. The Capitals went on the power play 6 times and scored twice. It's 3-2. Jacob Chychrun, who had 3 points on the night, 2 goals and an assist. Just bad slot defense where he's moving high. Essentially, he's in high in the zone. This was on a power play as well. Like I mentioned, Marshall So got called for, I believe it was slashing. Chychrun has all this space up high, and then he has it finds it in the slot too, just moves from high straight down into the middle and shoots and scores. And it's 4-2, and the game is out of reach. It's just more bad slot defense, but I'm not going to get on that for y'all because some of the stuff that I've talked about, I've just gone over and over again. It's just, again, it's more living and dying by the PK essentially. And Washington scored twice on the power play, which if you look in a 2-goal game, that's the difference at the end of the night. And if you want to be this team that comes back consistently, you can't be doing that. If you want to make this thing that's not supposed to work, you need to be playing a cleaner game at least and drawing yourself onto the power play even more, as we saw in that Blues game and the Wilds game. This team is elite on the power play right now. But as we see right now in this 4-game stretch, the comeback magic has died out, and they are kind of out of that a little bit more. And a lot of it is, like I said, it's just going up against opponents that are better, that are just good teams than the last. It's just too late in the season for good teams to get up early and then have this opportunity for the Predators to come back into it. Good teams aren't going to allow that to happen unless you're a bottom feeder like the St. Louis Blues, essentially. So that's my piece mainly on that game. When we get into the break, after the break, we'll talk about some more topics flowing around this game a little bit more. We'll talk about the standings, which it's kind of aggravating what's come out to a little bit more and frustrating. And then we'll talk about the break and what to look for during this break. And I'll tease some stuff that's coming up for y'all, because I know you guys have been asking for a little bit more banter back and forth, some guests, some different stuff, and we're shaking it up over the break. And you guys will get that and see some familiar faces, but we're going to take an ad break right here. And when we come back, we will talk about what is going on in the Western Conference standings. I got to remember what conference we were in because I was talking about the East. Anyway, that's coming up after the break. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So now we're going to talk about the standings a little bit more, and it's even more frustrating to look at how everybody in front and now front, I don't know what front is, in front of the Predators has done over these last 4 games, and a team behind them now. And I'll explain that. But in the final week before the break, the Predators moved 1 spot. And that's them picking up 5 of their last 8 points, which shows, and as they've reiterated many times before, we're fighting for our lives out here. Every point, every game matters. You pick up 5 of 8, and that's still not enough in this race, because they are in a weird spot right now where they are just they're on the cusp of it, and they've been on the cusp of it for a really long time, and the teams in front of them aren't letting up anything or giving anything. This week, though, the teams in front of them gave them a lot, and the Predators won out. They would have been a point out of the wild card right before the Olympic break. Do you know how big of like a momentum booster that would be, or how huge that would be for this team to be a point out of the wild card going into the break? That would be huge. And it just needs to be an understanding of how competitive that this is right now, how bad the start of the year was, and the Predators are still trying to dig themselves out of it. It's February, and you're still dealing with stuff that happened in November because you were that bad now. And that's a big reason why this team has been back for so long, because they've done so much fighting and still are fighting and still not in a wild card seed. And again, like I said, everybody in front of them, almost everybody, was worse than the Predators in these last 4 games. And the Predators moved 1 spot. And the reason they moved 1 spot is because the Sharks imploded. They blew up. They had an awful 4 games, and that allowed the Predators to move up. You needed teams to lose in front of you. You got one. Now you need the Kings, the Ducks, the Mammoth, I almost said the Seahawks, looking forward to the Super Bowl, the Kraken. Looking at the situation right now, we'll go from who's leading to who's not. The Kraken are 3-1 and 3-1-0 over their last 4. They're third in the Pacific with 63 points. Utah 2-2, wild card 1 with 64 points. The cutoff is the Anaheim Ducks, who went 2-2 as well. Wild card 2, 63 points. Now, first out is the Kings, who went 1-3-1. That's their last 5. I calculated that wrong. Either way, that's not great. 60 points. Predators are a point behind them. To think if that Wild game went a little better, they would have that. They'd be tied with the Kings right outside of the wild card seed. 1-3-1 with 60 points. The Predators are 2-1-1 in the last 4. They're 2 out with 59 points. And the Sharks went 0-3-1. They're 3 out with 58 points. Now, like I said, if they won the week, they'd have 62. They have 62. That would put them a point behind Anaheim. Now you lost to the Capitals, and then you lose in overtime to, who did they lose to? The Wild. That's 3 points you left on the table, and now you're 4 points outside of a wild card spot. That's 2 games you need to pick up, and that's 2 games you need other teams to lose, 2 or 1. You need teams in front of you to essentially give you a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's more frustrating. Essentially, yes, this team is close, but it's still not enough. It's still not enough. And that is the task that this management team has at the deadline is, do we want to keep going with this core? Can we find ways to supplement this group, or to, as many people want to see, just blow it all up? And that's the crossroads they're at right now. Is this current group going to show out, or do we need to make supplemental moves to make them better, or do we need to blow it all up? I'll tell you now, y'all, the whole blowing it all up thing. And again, I've read the comments and I see stuff everywhere. Blowing it all up, it's going to be miserable for a while. And just be prepared for that. They might be bad for a while, especially with the new GM coming out. And the way Barry Trotz phrased it too, he's not going to do it, because he said he wants to leave this team in a better place, in a good place for the new GM to come in. I don't think that means he's going to move out everything that he put together right now. That just doesn't make any sense in the regards of what he said. But I'll say this. Starts are critical, and this team doesn't seem like they want to really continue to address it anymore, in the start problem. And I understand what Roman Josi was saying. Essentially, I don't want to talk about it anymore. We don't want to talk about it anymore. It's a sense of, we talk the talk, now we need to walk the walk. But saying you don't want to address this anymore shows I just show it comes off as, well, we're just going to continue doing this. And I know that's not what he meant at all, or at least that's not what he meant it for it to come off as. But the team's hesitation to like stop talking about this is just, I understand it can be pestering from a media angle, of course, but this is clearly a problem. And you need to stop putting yourself in the back seat constantly, over and over and over again. And I know they don't like it, but you got to figure it out. You have to come out with more intensity or what? And Andrew Brunette said, I feel like we're finding our game slower and we're like kind of wading into the game, WADING, into the game. But it doesn't seem like they're interested in doing that. And maybe you need to find core players that are going to help fix that at the trade deadline. But in the end, good teams don't give up 3 goals in the first period. Good teams don't go down 5-1 in the first 25 minutes of the game. And good teams don't give another squad 6 power plays. And yes, good teams can come back from being 4 down and win a game. Good teams can come back from being 2 down and giving up a hat trick in the first period to force overtime. And good teams can make it a 1-goal game. But I saw somebody make a comment like this, and it sticks in my head for a while. They're Jekyling and hiding, essentially. Essentially, they do one thing really bad, and they do one thing really good. That is the best way to encapsulate this team right now. They are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They are doing one thing completely bad, one thing completely good. And that is evening out to what you would think would be being completely mid, sitting right outside of a playoff spot for a month now. It's been a month essentially, a little bit over a month. They need consistency bad, and not the consistency to be bad. They need consistency up and down this lineup. They need more depth, and they need a bump from the defense bad. Consistency, oh my goodness, should be what the Predators and Barry Trotz are looking for at the deadline. But before we get into the last segment, I want to talk to you guys about the Everydayer Club. So thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Predators with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonpredators.supercast.com or check the links in the show notes to learn more. I'm sorry, y'all. It's midnight. I don't know why I hold these so late in the day. I am tired, and I'm tired. This team exhausts me as well. But when we come back, we will be talking about what's going to be going on during the break, what potentially could be going on during the break, I should say, and things to look out for as well, because there still will be hockey going on, not in Nashville, but just keep an eye out for it. What's going on and what could be happening after the Olympic break and after this ad break. So we're officially in a 2-week pause for the Olympics. That Washington game was the final game before the Olympics, and 4 Preds will still be playing. That's Eric Halla, UC Saros, Philip Forsberg, and Roman Josi. They'll be playing in the Olympics. Halla and Saros for Finland, Forsberg for Sweden, and Roman Josi for Switzerland. It's going to be a great time. NHL's back in the Olympics for the first time since 2014. It's going to be all good. Now, no trading can be going on during this period. There's very minimal movement that's allowed during this time, including moving guys down to the HL right now. And that in order to do it, you need to do it ahead of this freeze, which just happened. The Predators did do that, but I want to read you off the rules of this freeze right now. Players can be sent down if they are waiver exempt, except for players that played in 16 of the game's 20 NHL games prior to the freeze, or they have been on an NHL roster for 80 league days prior to January 21st. So there's some stipulations here, kind of a lot of stipulations in the sense that they really don't want anybody doing any sort of movement right now or clearing up cap space or whatever, because they're strictly on the Olympics. I think their NHL's mind is over there completely, and they don't want things or anything like that happening at home. One of the transactions that has been kind of due a little bit is the Predators did send Matthew Wood down to Milwaukee prior to the Predators game on Thursday. He has 3 points in 14 games. He just needs, similar to Svechkov, he just needs a place to where he can continue playing, especially during a break. He needs to have a place where he's not sitting around for 2 weeks, where he's out there and he's skating and he's getting some really good reps, and he could be kind of an all-star in Milwaukee, similar to Svechkov, and just getting his legs loose, see how he does after the break, and potentially looking into calling him back up. I know from what I saw last game from him, his skating needs to improve immensely. I know he's a big guy, but he has some really great hands, and he uses his form, his build to his strength of his abilities immensely. He has a big build and he uses it well, driving to the net, similar to Reed Schaefer. But he needs to really improve on his skating here. That is hurting his game a lot here. So hopefully he can get some good reps down in Milwaukee. For the time being, Milwaukee will play 7 times during this break. They're playing Rockford 3 times. They're playing Texas twice. They're playing Grand Rapids, and they're playing Iowa. If you guys have seen a lot of the Admirals, they're being a typical AHL team this year, and they're fighting a lot. There's a lot of penalties with the Admirals this year. Reed Schaefer explained this a little bit to Alex Daughtry a little bit, and saying that Milwaukee's a big team and people like to challenge them. And we've seen that against Rockford, and we've seen that against Grand Rapids. There might be a little bad blood for the Iowa Wild, as the Admirals had that overtime winner in the Outdoor Classic. And then I don't know anything about Texas. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know too much about the AHL right now. I'm looking to get up to Milwaukee, or at least in the area, to watch some games eventually and check in on some prospects, because I think that'd be really cool. But notable players that will be playing in Milwaukee during this break will be Matthew Wood, Fedor Svechkov, Zach LaRue, Joakim Kimmel, and Ryan Ufko, my favorite. Keep an eye out for them for sure, especially Wood and Svechkov, and see how they're progressing, see how they fit into the system. If you guys have a hankering for hockey, if the Olympic hockey's not on right now, check out the Admirals, because there's a handful of pieces the Predators are banking a lot on. Barry Trotz is banking a lot on that need to be playing better, that are down in Milwaukee right now. And just see some of the guys that are playing consistently well too, like Zach LaRue and Ryan Ufko, and see just how good their game is and how they deserve an opportunity. Going back to the freeze rule a little bit more, in my opinion, there are some guys that, and maybe I'm reading this off wrong, and we'll see some transactions because the freeze has started. And maybe I'm missing some rules, but maybe these guys qualify for these transactions, and I'm not looking at this right. But Reed Schaefer was called up, and Ozzy Weisblatt is still up here. These are 2 guys. Reed Schaefer's kind of bouncing in between. He would benefit going to Milwaukee a little bit more. I understand they probably need to free up some space on their roster. So maybe keeping some guys up and sending some guys down is part of that. Ozzy Weisblatt has not been amazing lately. I know he's coming back from injury, a longer injury, but he probably could benefit from some games in Milwaukee. But talking about that 16-game played rule, Reed Schaefer's played 27 and Ozzy Weisblatt's played 30. So, I mean, there is a lot of rules in place for this to make sure that the freeze does stay frozen and there's no melting points of this thing at all. But with the Predator situation, there's really not a lot of guys that qualify for that, because they've played every guy that they've called up. They've stuck up here for a while. We have not seen a lot of call-ups. That's the big thing. I believe the guys that qualify for this are Brady Martin, who is playing juniors right now, Joakim Kimmel, who did not play really at all and has been in Milwaukee for the majority of the year. And then I can't remember who the last guy was, but it's Andreas Englund. Yes, these are the guys that have not played these number of the games, but it's because they have not been doing any movement through Milwaukee and Nashville at all this year. So, I mean, a lot of the guys I've seen on the roster this year that have call up or anything, they've had a loaded amount of games that they played already. I believe all of them at least have a minimum of 20 or something like that. But another thing, kind of the biggest thing going into this break to kind of think about a little bit more, is what picture does this team paint for management during this break? You best believe this counts as a period to where management is going to decide what they want to do at the trade deadline, get a plan together, and start executing it once NHL play resumes and the league resumes. In my opinion, this is what it looks. And again, I could be wrong. You could think I could be wrong. That's fine. That is completely fine. This is what I think in following this team and watching it all year is there's not enough to tear it completely down. That's so important. There is not enough to completely tear this team down. If they were playing the same way that they did from October, November into now, you could say, yes, this team completely needs to tear down and blow it up. And if they did keep playing like that, it probably would have been blown up by now. But they started playing well in December and they started playing well in January. Not so great in January, but they started playing well, period. And they've put themselves in a position now to where they're competing for a playoff spot still. It's not in a position to completely blow it up. It just isn't. It doesn't make sense to burn it all down right now. But they need a solid push from the fourth line, as I think I've mentioned before, one good winger down there, or another a good center to put into there. That I think would be a boost that this team needs immensely. They need better defense completely. You need to get completely new guys on the bottom pairing, and you need to maybe get a decent guy on the second pairing as well, because the defense is just not doing it right now. You have to understand, is this what Trotz wants to do in his definition of leaving the team in a good place for a new GM? Does he want to start the future and get the future going, or does he want to put a good core in place that a new GM can continue to build off of? And whatever moves they do, is it going to be enough? Is this core that they have right now, is it enough right now? It frankly does not look like enough. Barry Trotz said everything's on the table and talking about they are not a playoff team right now. Interpret that whatever way you will, but we are officially into the pause right now, and this is going to be the final episode of the week. When we come back next week in the Olympic break, I have some guests lined up for y'all, so I know you guys have been asking for it. We're going to see Emma Lingen return. We're going to see the GOAT Teresa Walker come on. Nick Kaiser, who has worked at the radio station, is now with Lower Broad Pucks. And then, I want to do a mailbag with y'all too. So I think this episode too, if you guys make it this far, I'm going to put a link in the show notes that you can find. You can find them on Spotify. You can find them on Apple Music. You can find them on YouTube. I will put a link in the show notes to do a mailbag. If you guys have any questions for me at all, Preds related, or you want to know if I can skate or not, because clearly some people are asking that, I promise you I can skate. I can pull out my skates right now that I've had for 13 years and I need to get a new pair. So if you have questions about my hockey history or qualifications, I can answer that as well, because clearly those are out there. But I'm going to put a Google form link in the show notes, and I'm going to push this out onto the Predators Facebook group, the popular one with the picture of Barry Trotz. I'll put it on Reddit. I'll put it on Twitter, even though nothing gets any traction out there. But, we're going to try. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to put together a mailbag episode. We're going to go through the questions, and we're going to answer everything. All right? And it could be Preds related. It could be hockey related. It just make it hockey related, essentially. Or I guess it could be Nashville related too. If you guys want to know, what's my favorite place to eat or what I like most about Nashville, it could be anything. Ideally, Preds related. But I'm going to put a link for a mailbag in the show notes. So if you guys want to be a part of that, and if you guys have made it this far, check that out. It'll be a Google form link, easy to fill out. Not going to make you guys say what your name is. I'll make that optional. If you guys want to put your name into there, I'll shout y'all out. But mailbag, ask the host, whatever you want to call it. The link to that will be in the show notes. So plan for that. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm always appreciative of you guys. I'm always thankful for you guys. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for watching this. Again, I know I'm new to this. I've done this for a few months, trying my best. I'm learning the ropes as I go. We're trying new things out. We're learning new things about myself and the show and doing all of this. And I'm grateful for you guys sticking with me, listening with me, getting to know me, telling me what you guys like hearing, what you guys don't like hearing. I'm very appreciative of you guys completely. And I want you to know that, period. You guys make the show go. Absolutely. Need the viewers, need the listeners to make the show go. So I'm thankful for you guys. And this is why I want to incorporate you guys in the show with a mailbag. I think it would be a lot of fun. But I've outroed for 5 minutes, so we'll get out of here. I'll get you guys on your way. At Jack G. Williams on Twitter /X, Jack Williams on the Hockey News Nashville Predators. Find us on Twitter at LO_Predators, Facebook, Instagram, we are Locked On Predators. And if you guys never want to miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Everydayer Club. Ad-free audio, members-only Discord access, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Again, grateful for you guys. Thankful for you guys. It will be a fun week next week. It will be a great Olympic break, and I'm looking forward to having those conversations with y'all, bringing some guests on the show, and having a little bit fun here, even when there's no hockey going on. But thank you for joining me for another episode of the Locked On Predators podcast.